Active FM. Radio has never been better.
What is up?
Hey, what is up?
This is the movie show.
On your favorite ORSPS.
I'm Sash.
My name's Ryan.
And we are continuing with our Guy Ritchie marathon. And this week we are looking... Yes, finally we're back in it. We're looking at Sherlock Holmes. The name went for a second. I was like, what are we looking at?
Game of Shadows.
Game of Shadows, which is it's the sequel of Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes. It was made in the year 2011. A long time ago, over 10 years now. And it is a mystery adventure film, 2 hours and 19 minutes. 2 hours and 9 minutes, sorry. 2 hours and 9. That's not important. You know what? That's really not important. So the cast reprising their roles is Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law as Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. And then we had Rachel McAdams, who reprised her role as... What was her name again? What was the character's name?
Who's that?
The chick that died in the beginning. Sorry, spoiler alert, but this thing did come out in 2011. Yeah. So by now you should...
actually.
Irene Adler, that's her name. Yeah. Yes. And then we also had Kelly Riley. She reprised her role as Mary, who marries Watson in this one. And then we had two new... the first character technically wasn't new because he was in the first one, but he was a faceless man. And then they gave him, Jared Harris wasn't originally Moriarty. He then became Moriarty, and then they went and re-recorded the voice. But that is in our previous show, so go listen to our first Sherlock Holmes. We're not going to repeat it. And then we had Stephen Fry as Mycroft Holmes, the brother of Sherlock Holmes.
I liked him.
I also liked him. And then we also had, this is the weird part. So we had Naomi Rapace, who played Simza, who was the gypsy in the film. And I've only ever known her from Sherlock Holmes. And after watching...
From this one, obviously.
After watching the film, I then happened to walk into the lounge and my father was watching a movie. I can't remember what it was called. It was with Orlando Bloom. And she was in it. And I was just like, that's so weird. Because you know how you never see an actress and then you suddenly watch one film.
You've seen it twice.
And now you just see all and you're just like... Yeah, and I wasn't even trying. Sometimes I do go and search actors' films and then watch them. But this time... Yeah, so it was quite interesting to see her.
Seen her first time, now you've seen her second time.
She was an FBI agent, a very different role to this one.
Cool.
Yeah. So, this film was... I actually watched a review, right, of this guy who said he hated the first one, but he liked this one. And I was like, I didn't hate the first one, so I'm not going to... Yeah, but that goes to show that if you didn't like the first Sherlock Holmes film, that doesn't necessarily mean you wouldn't like this one. Because someone who literally didn't like the first one actually said he'd rather... The second one was way better. Go watch the second one. Those were his thoughts on the film.
So this one had the same Sherlock Holmes story, obviously, background. But then what they did was then they there's apparently some of the original short Sherlock Holmes stories that are... in this one.
Yes.
And if you actually see the covers, you can actually see certain scenes from the movies.
From the movie, yeah.
You're like, oh, yeah, that was that part where they did that. Oh, yeah, and that's where that happened.
Okay, no, we're spoiler alerting because this film came out over 10 years ago. So we're talking about the movie.
We're talking as if everybody's seen it.
Yes. So obviously in this film at the end, Sherlock Holmes plummets to his death as he grabs Moriarty and throws them over the balcony. That actually is from the book. That
whole scene play out was so awesome.
No, it was.
Because he does his usual thing. And then Moriarty is also like, oh, you think you're the only one?
Yes, which shows that they were equals.
Exactly. And you're like, wait, what? What's going on?
He's not supposed to be in this voiceover.
And then he pushed him over. That is so sad. And then he's like, well, only one thing. And then...
Yeah. Except I did. So what actually happened when what's his name? Doyle. The guy that originally wrote Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle. He's the writer of Sherlock Holmes. So what happened was he wrote in the book The Final Problem. and he actually intended for the final problem to be the end of the Sherlock Holmes series.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's how Holmes defeated Moriarty, by falling over the waterfall to the apparent death of their both. Yes. However, in response to overwhelming public demand, Doyle wrote another story and resurrected Holmes, and that only happened like 10 years later. So originally,
do you know anything about that story? Was it anything close
to the resurrection one?
Was that anything close to what happened in the film? You know, with the whole camouflage thing.
I don't know if it was like that.
Not sure.
I haven't actually read the Sherlock Holmes books. I should though.
But it probably popped up.
But Sherlock resurrecting from the dead isn't a new thing, because I know even in the Benedict Cumberbatch stories, there was at the end of season 2, spoiler alert, Sherlock dies, and you're like, oh, what? Or was it 1? I can't remember. And then then he resurrects from the dead. Well, he doesn't resurrect from the dead because technically he never did die. But then. Yeah, they obviously they get into that whole story. But what I found interesting about this one, so he dies, right? And at the end of the at the end of the book, the final problem, Sherlock dies. There's no Doyle didn't write in, like they did at the end of this movie where Watson finds the oxygen tank thing, and then okay, question mark, is Sherlock dead? No, it ended with Sherlock is dead. Then what happened was 10 years after that, he then now, based on the public demand, wrote Sherlock back in. And I watched another guy who gave a review who actually said the ending of this film irritated him so much because of the fact that they gave away that Sherlock was still alive. Because he said, number one, that's not what happened in the books. Number two, they were only planning on making the third Sherlock Holmes films in 2021. That's when it was supposed to come out.
That actually would have been cool.
Which was 10 years later. So he was like, why did you give away the spoiler?
That actually could have been cool.
Yeah.
So you're like, wait, another Sherlock Holmes? Wait, but how's that going to work
out? He died!
Okay, let's see what happens. And
you see, they should have done that. And now the sad thing is the Sherlock Holmes 3 film, the threequel, apparently that's what you call them, threequels, it still hasn't come out, and we'll get into a bit later on whether it will come out or not, or what's the story with the third Sherlock Holmes film. But yeah, that's basically. But now this blew my mind. This I was just like, oh my goodness. So this whole film was actually a chess match, if you think about it. If you break it down to its most simplest form.
Well, the final problem, that whole scene over there.
That was the chess match. That was
brilliant.
But the whole analogy of the chess match goes so.
They play chess in the beginning.
In the beginning, yes. And what happens is, so in the beginning scene where Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty meet, Moriarty sits down by a chessboard. They haven't started playing yet, and he picks up a black piece. Now, if you know anything about chess, you know that the white pieces, whoever's playing with the white pieces, they always start the game. If you're playing black, you don't start. White always starts the game
because it's attack.
Yes. So the fact that Moriarty picked up a black piece without white having started actually just shows that he's the type of character that won't play by the rules, and he will do anything to win, even if it means starting the game when he's not supposed to have started. So that was a cool, especially if you know chess, it's a very cool clue as to the character of Moriarty without you really knowing anything about him, just by the fact that he started the chess game on black. But then also, so at the beginning of the film, which was a huge shock, obviously he kills Irene Adler, straight up, who's Sherlock Holmes' love interest, and you're just like, what?
Before you move on from the chess piece, another thing about chess is that often when you're black, you're in defense, and white is an attack. So that's why the white goes first, because they attack. Now, if you look at Moriarty, he was the one actually attacking. So he was the black chess piece, and he was the one attacking. So that's completely out of
And then also Sherlock Holmes, in the beginning, if you listen to him, he actually says he's playing a game. And then he says a shadowy game, which actually showed that the whole film in its entirety was just always alluding back to a chess game. And then this is where it gets crazy, right? So, in the beginning of the film, right? Irene Adler, Moriarty kills her. Right?
Yes.
So if on the chessboard she would be any piece, what piece would she be? Come on, right? She was Sherlock Holmes' love interest. So to Sherlock Holmes, she would be the
queen.
The queen, right?
Oh, right.
So at the beginning of the film slash match, the queen was was sacrificed.
Yeah.
Which in chess, if you know anything, your queen is one of your most powerful pieces because she can literally move anywhere, So the fact that the queen was sacrificed was obviously not good. So it's not uncommon in chess for the queen to be sacrificed. However, you have to be a very good player and you have to have a very good strategy in order to get past a move where your queen is taken. And obviously, like, you can get your pawns to the end of the chessboard and then resurrect your queen. But so in the film, Irene Adler is Sherlock Holmes' queen, right? And he obviously sacrifices his queen. But now, you know, in the chess match at the end, in that chess match, the queen, his physical queen, is also sacrificed. And Guy Ritchie, what he did was he actually was basing that whole chess match at the end was actually based on a real chess match that happened in 1966 in Santa Monica. And the game had a queen sacrifice and a discovered checkmate to win the game. So what a discovered checkmate, it's actually insane. There's like a whole YouTube video where the guy explained it. I was like, wow. Basically what a discovered checkmate is, you have your pieces lined up, and when you move a certain piece, the piece that you move wasn't actually the threat. It's the piece behind that piece that was the threat. And as a result, that's why it's a discovered checkmate. Do you understand? Which is exactly what happened in the chess. So you don't see Sherlock and Moriarty playing the chess game.
They just sort of say
they say bishop to whatever. So they're speaking through the moves. But if you actually had to play out the moves as they were speaking, you'd see that it's also the queen sacrifice plus the discovered checkmate to win the game. The opening moves are slightly different to this actual chess match, and the colors were in reverse. But otherwise, he literally used like an actual one of the greatest chess matches, and it's known for that queen sacrifice. Because when he sacrificed his queen, all the spectators were like, what are you doing? Do you understand? Because that's not like it shocked people. And then the fact that he still went on to win was pretty impressive.
And that must have been like earlier on in the game.
Yes.
So early, he sacrificed
his queen, yeah. And then also the chessboard motif runs throughout the whole film. And so there's either an actual chessboard like on the set or like in the scene, or in the final scene, you know, where they're dancing and all of that. If you look at the floor was black and white. It was black and white checkered like sequences or squares, which is literally a chessboard. Yeah. So
makes sense.
I just thought it was so cool how there was like this background analogy of like chess, which I suppose if you were a chess player, you would have picked up a lot more. Like a really good chess player that's able to like speak a game of chess, you would have picked it up more. But like, I thought it was really cool how they did that. The only thing is, I have one thing against this film, and that is when I watched the Sherlock Holmes series with Benedict Cumberbatch, the guy that played Moriarty in that thing freaked me out. As in, like, you know, when you have a character, it's not often, but like, you know, when you watch something and someone really freaks you out, like they make you feel uncomfortable. Like the fact that they're the villain and they're so like he got to me, like that Moriarty got to me.
I think that's just what is his name? Martin, right? The character with the Sherlock version that you're talking about. The guy, it was the guy who played no, I've got the wrong character.
You're thinking of Martin Freeman playing
and you're talking about Moriarty.
Yeah. And honestly,
who's Moriarty in that?
He's got dark hair and he's like big eyes and he's just freaky.
I'm trying to yes. But the Moriarty in this one also kind of,
He was bad, but he didn't scare me the way that Moriarty scared me. He was creepy, but it didn't. For me personally, it didn't come close to that Moriarty. Freaked me out.
Especially like, the part where he's singing in the mirror, like that whole German, and you're just like, that's a bit weird. Like, what is he doing?
He was weird.
Yeah,
but I just didn't get. Do you understand what
I'm saying? I think if I saw the one,
like the one that was the only thing. Like that one, I was like, no, this guy, I wouldn't like to meet this guy in real life. Like, you know, if there's anyone you wouldn't like to meet, it would be Moriarty from the Sherlock Holmes series. And I didn't really feel like that same like type of thing in this one. Yeah, but that's just a personal opinion that I have. Yes. So now on to Sherlock Holmes 3. What of Sherlock Holmes 3? Well, it was obviously supposed to be released in... Actually, 2020 was when it was first supposed to be released. I don't know if you remember, we actually did... You know how we do our yearly movies coming out this year? Yes. And we actually did mention Sherlock Holmes 3, and I was so excited. And it still hasn't come out yet. And apparently it's no closer to being made, unfortunately. Plus, on top of that, Guy Ritchie won't direct it. So he'll probably be a producer, but he's moved out of the director role, which I'm very sad about. Like, for me, Guy Ritchie was one of the things that made Sherlock Holmes, the Sherlock Holmes films. And do you understand? Like, I love them, and I know it was because of his directing. So, yeah. But the only update there's been is... Guy Ritchie dropped in February 2023 during an interview with Collider, and Ritchie, who will presumably be a producer on the third film since the director's chair is already filmed, was asked whether the movie will ever get made, and his response was, honestly, I left this up to Robert Downey Jr., so Robert wanted to be in charge of this. The ball's in his court, so he's in charge of the script, he's in charge of the whole thing. I've moonwalked out of that until there's a time for me to get involved. So while we wait for Robert, if you want more Sherlock Holmes in your life, there are potentially 2 spin-off TV shows set in the same universe to be produced by HBO Max and Warner Brothers, although we haven't heard anything about them since April 2022.
You know that Robert Downey Jr.'s wife is a producer in Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't know that.
She's actually like president and some other, very top position in some production companies. So I think I can understand why it's kind of in Robert Downey Jr.'s shoes, why the ball is in his court.
Is in his court. Yeah, shame. I must be honest, I am sad though that Guy Ritchie won't be directing it personally.
I don't think it's going to be the same.
No, it won't. It's the same as what happened with Michael Bay with the Transformers stuff. Like
it's going to be like that.
Which means it could possibly be a flop.
There's a Guy Ritchie taste, a trait to the film.
Yes.
That you see.
Yeah. Although one thing, so like thinking on what the third film could be about, because obviously Moriarty's now dead. So now who becomes like Sherlock's nemesis? Dead? That's obviously, but in the books he was dead, and in like the series he was dead. What they then did in the series, right, was they brought in Sherlock's sister. So Sherlock and Mycroft actually have a sister, but she's like worse than Moriarty. And what they did in the series, she actually made me feel more unsettled than Moriarty did, because in the series they introduce her as 3 different characters first before you realize that she's just been undercover the whole time. And I think what freaked me out was I didn't pick it up. You know how sometimes in movies, like when someone's undercover, you know they're undercover. Yeah. So they're not tricking you, the audience. They're just tricking the characters. This time around, they actually trick you, the audience. In fact, Watson even goes on a date with her. That's how close she is. It's very freaky. It's like, I was very uncomfortable. I was just like, oh my goodness, this chick's worse than Moriarty. So that would be an interesting take on it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's just speculation. I'm just going off what the series did. But yeah, I don't know. I had so much. I was looking so forward to the third Sherlock Holmes film.
It seems to me that even what we've spoken about the books, that the whole main thing of Sherlock Holmes is not just Sherlock Holmes, but Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty.
Yeah.
Because in the books, when he dies, that's the end.
Well, no. Then Doyle did write that final book 10 years later.
But that was like, okay, all right.
But then obviously he didn't have Moriarty. Yeah. But I also feel like they didn't give enough. I feel like they rushed. I honestly feel like they rushed it. It's like for me, this should have kind of been like maybe a 5-film franchise. Do you understand what I'm saying? Where they really built Moriarty up, because like Moriarty was bad, but like there wasn't really much to... Do you understand? And then when he died, you were like, eh. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
he died.
Yeah, like, okay, Sherlock 1, cool. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, okay, maybe not the 5th film. Maybe like the 3rd film. Maybe they should have built it to a climax, and at the end of the 3rd film, Sherlock dies. And they just end it there. And you're just like, and then they bring out the 4th film. 10 years later.
It's like Batman without the Joker.
Exactly. from there. Yeah. Maybe yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. But I suppose I'd be interested to see how Robert Downey Jr., what he do. I'd go watch it. I would go watch it. I'm nervous for it, but I would go watch it.
I'd go watch it.
But we don't know yet. We
not
don't
expecting, with not much expectation.
If they were returning as they were, I'd be so excited for this film. I'd be so pumped. But unfortunately,
in other words, get Guy Ritchie to
direct it again and be good.
I'll go watch it in a cinema. In IMAX.
There we go.
And if it's not in IMAX, I'll make it in IMAX.
Yeah. So yeah, that was Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows. But until next week.
See you then.
Peace.